Hello friends and welcome to my little studio. Today I'm going to start my series of style exploration videos, and by this I mean videos where I'm going to explore different mediums, techniques and art styles. And in today's video I'm going to do 3 master studies based on this book, 101 Great Illustrators from the Golden Age. And for those who are wondering what Golden Age is, basically it's a period of time going from 1890 to 1925 when there was a huge demand of printed word, and this meaning also printed image. And there was also a great improvement of printing processes and color representation, and this meant a lot to the publishing industry and to illustrators. So after 1925, basically, there was the radio event and then the television event, and so there wasn't such a high quantity of printed images and printed word required. And so yeah, that was a period of time, the best period of time for illustrators, and a lot of later illustrators like Norman Rockwell were influenced by the illustrators from this golden age. So let's start the video and get to know better some of these artists. So the very first illustrator that caught my eye is Ivan Bilibin, who was a Russian illustrator, and I was really into the way he drew nature and especially trees, the silhouette of the trees and the way he stylized branches. So I wanted to study this in particular. If I would have to do the whole illustration, maybe it would have taken me, 2 days, because there are a lot of details, both in nature but also on the character. And I also think he mastered watercolors so well, because there are a lot of earthy tones, but they're not muddy. And this is very hard to achieve with watercolors, I think. So I would have loved to know more about his colors and the way he mixed colors. But unfortunately, in this book, there aren't a lot of information about the technique of the painters, and this is like a very big missing detail in this book, in my opinion. I would have loved to know more about the painting process. First of all, I want to take you through the artist background before going into the painting process of this video. And I want to talk about who was Ivan Bilibin in particular. So he studied both art and law at the same time, and then he was commissioned by the Russian Museum to study and draw native people and culture across the country. And this fueled his interest in fairy tales and folk. And unlike the other Russian artists who are more into an academic and realistic approach, he was more into the European contemporary illustration. At the beginning of this master study, I tended to follow everything from the reference photo, but at some point I decided that it was better to just scribble the branches, because I think this was the intention of Ivan Bilibin, just do some scribbles and not be too precious about every shape of the branch, because basically it's a freehand shape in my opinion. So I've used this violet blue from Roller and Klingner Antique Touche, which is a very intense blue. I think even Bilibin used a darker blue or even a black in this illustration. I'm not very sure about it. But anyway, I decided to go with this color and see how it worked with the whole painting in the end. It was such a long time since I've used inks and nibs, so it was very nice to do the line art with inks again. And then I went on top with watercolors, of course. And after the first layer, I realized that the painting of Ivan Bilibin was much more opaque. I mean, I think he added a lot of layers to achieve that kind of opacity and richness of color. So I went with a second layer and I stopped there, even if the result is not so similar to the Ivan Bilibin's illustration. And I combined 3 main colors, which were burgundy yellow by Daniel Smith, and then I mixed the coral red to cadmium red, also from Daniel Smith, and then I added some touches of cobalt turquoise by Daniel Smith again. And yeah, these were the 3 main colors for the sky. And I think the cobalt turquoise is so similar to the color Ivan used in the illustration on the clouds. I think I would have never drawn the clouds this way because I usually draw fluffy clouds and these are very pointy and angular, and I think they suit very well the atmosphere in the illustration and the drama and the mystery. And overall, all the shapes in this little drawing are very pointy, and I think that they fit overall the atmospheres of Ivan's illustrations. And this was a great exercise to just study something new and study a new atmosphere. That is not something I do very often. And in the end, I added this very dark color on the branches. This was a color that I obtained by mixing all the colors I used previously. So the burgundy yellow, I think the coral red only, and then the cobalt turquoise. And I think the color in the end is so nice because you can see different colors inside. I mean, sometimes you can see a bit of red and sometimes you can see a bit more yellow or blue. And this is because the blue is granulating a lot, so it allows the other color to pop. And I think this is very similar to the Ivan's illustration, in my opinion, at least this color in particular, which is very earthy and muted. And I didn't film the whole process of this, but I end up doing another layer on the branches because I thought it was too transparent. I mean, I don't know why my colors look so transparent on the paper compared to the Evans ones. So I did a couple of layers. And yeah, this is the end result. And I think it's very similar, although it's not the same thing because, of course, I didn't spend hours on this painting. I didn't do the research and testing he may have done. And of course, I don't master watercolors and drawing in general the way he may be mastered. I mean, these are great illustrators from the past, so we can't compare with them, but we can study from their great artworks and learn a lot. Another great illustrator that I really love in this book is Warwick Goble, who was a British illustrator with a strong interest in the Eastern design and fabrics and imagery, and this influenced both his art style and the assignments he chose. He used to use rich color palettes who were suited to the exotic landscapes and fabrics of the Eastern culture, and I really love this aspect of his works along with the fluffy clouds that I'm going to study in this master study. This is the reason why I wanted to draw the windmill and the background only, because I really loved the shape of the cloud and I wanted to reproduce it. So the aspects I'm going to focus on are the volume of the cloud, the way it flows, like it goes away from the mill. And yeah, these are the main aspects along with the colors, of course, because I love the palette and I think there are some interesting combination here I'm going to talk about. So the very first layer of color is very transparent. You barely see it because the light is so bad during winter in my studio. I'm very sorry about this. But in the second layer you're going to see more of my choices and how the colors really appear on the paper. And I've used again the burgundy yellow because I think it's a very nice vintagey yellow. Anyway, I also added some pops of coral red, and the blue I've used was the ultramarine blue, which has a lot of granulation. I've also used a lighter yellow and some olive green for the grass, and then I've added some pops of ultramarine at the top because I wanted to darken it like in the original illustration. And then I pushed those colors towards the mill because the mill was darker, but it also has some undertones like some greens and some reds, so I wanted to do a sort of underpainting for the mill too. After the colors dry, I've noticed that there were some differences in comparison to the Warwick illustration, and that where the sky in particular was duller. So I've noticed that I usually use too many pastel shades and too many light shades in my illustrations, and this doesn't allow contrast. So this was a nice lesson for me. But anyway, I tried to mix the blue, the ultramarine blue, with some yellow and some rose so that I could get a duller shade, and I added another layer with this spot of dull blue. And another thing that I've noticed is that I tend to be too light with my colors. So in particular, the clouds, I never paint them. I let them white or with a bit of yellow. And in this case, the cloud was so yellow, or like a dark vintagey yellow. So I added a few layers of yellow on top, again with the burgundy yellow. I think I could have mixed it with some ultramarine so to get it darker, but I didn't do it. And I added just a few pops of coral red and then some turquoise. This was another shade of turquoise, a paler one, and it added such nice contrast within the cloud. I really love this effect. For the milk color, I mixed all the colors that I've used previously, so the blue and the red and the yellow, and I think I added more of the coral red so that I get this sort of violet, of dark violet. And yeah, this was basically the only thing I did for the meal because it was not my point of interest. After I finished the cloud and I was happy with how it turned out, I looked closer at the Warwick illustration and I've noticed that there was something that was missing in my cloud, and I thought that I was seeing some graphite inside his cloud. I don't know if this is the quality of the printing because it's an old printing and maybe I'm seeing wrong, but anyway, I pulled out a standard pencil and added some touches of graphite here and there, especially on the shadows, and I also added some line art with the graphite, and this added a whole new vintagey vibe, and I really love the effect at the end. Also, adding some light washes of blue on the farthest part of the cloud was a nice effect because it really adds to the volume and to the shape of the cloud, and it makes it more like tangible. And in the end, I go in with my fountain pen, which already has a dark violet ink inside, so it's perfect for this drawing and for the meal in particular. And I don't do a lot of things, I just do the line art and add details. And also I emphasize some shadows because it lacks volume, and I also enjoy adding lines at the end. I think in this way everything comes together and it's really nice to see this part of the process. I also add some details on the grass because it looks too flat, and a bit of rocks. Yeah, in general I'm doing some scribbles. I don't think too much about the shapes, and this is one of the part of the process that I really enjoy because I feel very spontaneous. And since this ink is not waterproof, unlike the Roller and Cleaner ink I used previously, I can smudge it with a wet brush, and so I can emphasize some parts of the painting. This is a very nice technique that you can do at the very end of the painting, because if you do the line art at the beginning and then you paint with watercolors, you'll get a huge mess on the paper. So yeah, you can do it at the end if you want to emphasize some shadows, and as I did here, I wanted to smudge some lines and to add some imperfection to the drawing. Also, the parts of the bright violet add a lot of contrast to the painting because violet and yellow are complementary colors, so together look very well on the painting and they truly catch the eye. The last master study was not planned out because I was on my desk for way too long and I wanted to quit, but I didn't want to let this part of the paper blank. So I went for the book and I wanted to find something that inspired me, that was not so complex and that was little enough to fit in this corner of the page. And I found this illustrator, Arthur Keller, and in particular this series of figure studies, which I loved a lot, especially for a few aspects that I'm going to explore with you later. So Arthur Keller was an American illustrator who was more into classical academic approach, but eventually he found his niche in illustration, where he was still able to convey realistic drama and scenery. He also loves studying and drawing from life, and in fact, there's a collection of figure studies of him published in 1920, and I would have loved to have this collection on my hands and see all his studies, because I really love artists' sketches and drawings, and I think they convey so much. Anyway, what I love about these figures in particular are the colors and also the poses, the hands. I think they convey a lot of emotion. So I decided to use liquid inks for this study in particular because I've noticed that his illustration have this smooth gradient and there's no granulation inside, so I didn't want granulation either, and I thought that liquid inks would be the solution for me. And so I've used a few colors from Haikala sets that I own, which are in particular the amber, sepia, the golden yellow and scarlet red, and also the blue violet that I've used previously for the line art of the first master study. Also, I mixed a few shades to get the same exact shades from the reference illustration, and so I added a bit of yellow into the amber. I got this very light browny shade, and then I added some blue inside of the sepia and also I think some red, and I got this nice grayish color that also has a pinch of color inside. And here is my favorite part where I use the orangey color, and I like it so much. I wanted to add it everywhere, but I had to be aware of the reference photo. And I was also wondering which kind of medium Arthur Keller used for this part of the painting. I don't know if he used the ink like me. I think that he may used the color pencil. Anyway, it was a very nice lesson, and I want to incorporate this part in my drawings, in my figure drawings, and I think this is such a nice look, a monochromatic look with some pops of color. It's so cute. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you'll be inspired to do some master studies on your own. For me personally, it was a great experience because it was the first time I was doing master studies in a more serious way. And I have to say that I've learned a lot of things that I want to improve later and that I want to implement in my style. But overall, it was nice just to observe what other artists did and also figure out which colors they used. Maybe finding the right shade or the shade that matches perfectly their own shade. And yeah, it was nice to try to get into the artist's head and understand better the technique and what they were thinking at that time. It's such a great experience, I think, and it has nothing to do with just copying and stealing other artists' work, because this is just to enjoy art and to try new things and explore the art culture. So thank you for watching this video. Let me know in the comments what do you think about master studies in general, and see you next week in the next video. Bye!